Hey everyone, Brian Von Vier here. We have kind of a weird one for you today. What was an aspect of your character that you left up to the DM to decide whether or not it's going to be the best or worst thing ever for your character? I was joining a campaign late to help replace some problem players who had been removed. Since the story was in progress and I knew none of the plot, I made a monk who was from a hidden temple in the mountains that hadn't communicated with the outside world in over 400 years. I went into detail about the religious order, but made sure to mention all their information would be vastly out of date. For backstory, I put that my monk's parents had left when she was 6 because mom had a vision from the goddess and needed to go on a holy mission. Now, as an adult, my monk was leaving home to develop her own fighting style and find out why her parents had never come home. I left the nature of the holy mission and the fate of my monk's parents up to the DM, and said it was a mystery I'd like my character to be trying to solve. I also told him to put the temple in whichever mountain range was closest to where the party in progress was, so it wouldn't be too hard for him to have me meet the group. He ended up putting my Selunite temple in the Thunder Peaks directly north of Huilun. You know, the place that had been turned into a prison city by fanatical worshippers of Selûne and Helm. In addition to a great Father Limerick plot that let me tie my goals to one of those of the other party members, I also had a very fun personal storyline where I learned my monk's mom had tried to kill the Baron 10 years prior when he was a kid. The Baron that mom tried to kill is now my monk's fiancé. Kinda became his sugar mama. I have 2 stories actually, both of them from the same DM, and both are just very awful. My first story is about my cleric who broke time. Due to some unfortunate circumstances, my cleric broke time and altered history. This caused our party to head down a pretty weird path, and we ended up in a dungeon where one of the other PCs died. That PC was very important to my character, and after all the shit that's happened, my character was just fed up and left the party. She couldn't handle it anymore. My DM decided what her ultimate fate was. Apparently, she just became a deranged and disillusioned old woman with knowledge outside the fourth wall that was played off as dementia. Suffice to say, I was very displeased with this outcome for her. It was not where I had wanted her to end up after breaking away from the party to wallow in her own self-pity. It wasn't the worst thing that could have happened, but it just felt so wrong for my character. The second story is my ASMR paladin of the Raven Queen. Something important to know is that I died in a previous life and was resurrected by said queen to assist her in her work. She sensed potential and gave me a new body. My memories were mostly lost in the transfer though, so I was an amnesiac. The important bit was an eventual plot thread that was going to surface later my DM clued us in on after he canceled the game. Apparently the massive charismatic cult leader we were fighting who was trying to pass herself off as the new Raven Queen was supposed to be me from the future. Like, huh? What the f? How would that have even worked? I'm still confused about it. That one detail spoiled the whole plot that I otherwise would have looked back on fondly for. It was just so stupid. Had a wizard halfling, left the DM to decide the familiar, ended up with a wooden frog. The frog did nothing but always sit on my shoulder. If I took my robe off, the frog would reappear on my shoulder in 1d4 minutes. In my Friday group, when we were first making characters, the DM gave us a choice of one thing to let him decide. For example, the wizard and her familiar, so that she could choose her first magical item. One of the fighters let him choose one of their fighting styles, which ended up working in the DM's detriment. For me, the choice was, give me your choice of starting magical item, I'll accept it. He decided to give me the pole of collapsing, and this was the best thing ever, as I have so many uses for it that my trickery cleric wild magic sorcerer might do. I've already gotten to use it as a balance beam bridge over a gap. Left my DM to make a homebrew wild magic table for my half-elf sorcerer, scared to ask him what it looks like. My character came to washed up on a river at the start of our campaign and has no memory of anything prior. It was fun trying to discover his past. It was my first campaign in character, so I figured it was a safe route. Longtime watcher and Discord lurker, first-time poster. Hey, welcome. When me and some friends tried getting into D&D, I had played a variant human rogue monk assassin. He was the last of his family and a member of a thought-to-be-dead order of assassins called the Black Dawn. I left the truth of what happened to them up to the DM. All traces we found of that order said they were dead. Turns out, they weren't dead. They were hidden in a massive underground city underneath the biggest city in the region. And as a bonus, turns out my character was a candidate to become the next leader. I was expecting to end up on a quest for vengeance, but this was nice too. I have a paladin named Ison that was part of a clan of lawful evil paladins and clerics of conquest. Ison used to be a foot soldier who was gaslit into thinking his clan was doing good, banishing any group of people with evil magic. Ison's responsibility was mostly to mend broken equipment and cook for his fellow crusaders. One day, Ison got bored and went in to check what his fellow crusaders were doing in a keep that they took so long in. That's when Ison sees many elven women and children killed one by his comrades. As a reaction, Ison tried to save some of the elven civilians by hiding them away. He was only successful in saving 3. His fellow crusaders caught Ison in the area, but not him saving the 3. To condition Ison to change his thoughts, they promote him to lead the next sieges. All this led to was Ison secretly sparing the many innocent elves, dwarves, and other magical humanoids. Ison was eventually caught and thrown into a dungeon and tossed down a river, symbolizing his exile. Ison now lives his new life, breaking the oath that was forced upon him since birth and having adventures, something he has wanted all along. Of course, his clan would want to make sure he suffers, and Ison also now needs to try to maintain his now Oathbreaker powers while remaining on the side of good until the day he comes to destroy his tyrannical clan. DM here. I've done this a number of times. My favorite application of this was in my game based in Bungie's Destiny universe. In that game, only one of my 3 players actually offered a background story of any kind. Of the 2 that didn't write a backstory, the player number 2 just didn't care enough to do such, and player number 3 was too busy with life and said he'd trust me with whatever I wrote up for his fallen captain character. So I used their inexperience with the system we would be running, D20 Star Wars Saga Edition, to justify playing a short 4 to 5 session adventure using expendable NPCs I wrote up for them. This would serve as a good way for the players to take risks in ways that allowed them to get a better feeling for the system. I explained that each NPC would be similar, but not exactly, the same build as what they had elected to play as their main characters later. Little did they know at the time that they were actually playing their own characters just centuries prior to the start of the story proper, a prologue, as it were. The prologue culminated in the players fighting an army of Hive in the ruins of a cathedral to protect a tribe of refugees hiding in the basement. Players 2 and 3 were granted dramatic death scenes as they, Player 2's character's teenage daughter, and Player 3's squad of altruistic fallen fought valiantly to the last man. Only the Hunter, Player 1, survived, where he would take and don Player 3's House of Angels captain's cloak and vow to take revenge upon Omnigul. Player 3's actual PC character would don that same cloak centuries later after vowing to avenge that Hunter after he saved her from Omnigul. My story proper would begin centuries later when Player 1 and 2 ghosts stumbled upon the mausoleum the refugees had built in their honor. The ghost then resurrected Player 2 and 3 for the first time there. Needless to say, it was my greatest moment as a DM, eliciting so many emotions from my players. I call that a win in my books. Still got my notes if anyone wants the details of both the prologue and main story afterward. My dad is still alive and is an ex-adventurer. His name is Oakley, or Dr. Oak. Yes, that's a Pokemon reference, the rest of the party doesn't know this yet. When my DM asked me where my dad lived again, I noticed all the place names surrounding my home had something with Oak, for Oakwell, Oakheart, etc. I told him that he can do whatever he wants with my dad's backstory, what happened to the adventuring party he was part of, what happened to him, if there are cities named after him, etc. In the last session we played, we met some nobles who seemed to know my dad, and he seems like a well-known figure. I know that as a player, my character doesn't, since he's quite stupid. This goes to my character's best friend. I was playing a demon bird named Zephyr. In his backstory, he was known to hate a specific group of demon hunters for a very specific reason. He thought they killed his tiny buddy. I told the DM there's a good chance that the tiny buddy was still alive, but Zephyr would still hate those demon hunters. I wound up with a second character, made by the DM, named Juniper. He was basically the opposite of Zephyr as far as stats goes. Juniper had high dexterity and charisma, and the rest of his stats were meh at best. Zephyr had high strength and intelligence. Basically, halfway throughout the campaign, we encountered the specific group of demon hunters, and it turns out they had been experimenting on Juniper. Juniper did look slightly different, but his soft voice and knowledge of Zephyr's old nickname kind of proved it wasn't some random tiny bird demon. First ever game of D&D. I didn't even know what a D20 was for or what to do in the game, so I decided to play a Goliath barbarian named Lazathug. I didn't create a backstory at the time, so the DM came up with him being a former slave who broke out of a traveling circus. To be honest, it was great. It gave him a reason to strive to be good and to help others, while also helping my character to grow out of the resentment he had with humans and drow, as they were specifically the ones who enslaved him. It was fun to roleplay the growth and slow love he gained for the human rogue and human paladin we have in the party. Thanks for being an amazing DM time and time again. Hey everyone, Brian Von VA back at it again to check in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, to subscribe, and to ring that bell for notifications whenever we post or go live. To catch us really live though, check out our Twitch. And if you want to check me out on Twitch, please do so at Brian Von VA, or you can head over to my YouTube page too. And if you want to out loud or maybe in a video, do so at r/MrRipper. That's our subreddit, by the way. And lastly, I'd like to just plug our little secondary channel, Riptovia, which hopefully by now is doing a little bit better, because that little baby needs some love too. Has a lot of TTRPG stories on there that you boys and girls might like out there. So give us a look. All the links to all of that will be in the description below. That said, I try to always end things on a positive note, and today's no different. Today, I just wanted to say, communication is key. Now, I know a lot of people in the world say, well, it's hard to communicate these days, and I agree. Sometimes it is a pain in the ass to communicate with anybody. You have to worry about so many things being wrong. You have to worry about all the trauma that you personally have coming out and you saying something stupid. Believe you me, I'm one of those people who tends to overcompensate whenever there's an issue in any relationship that I have, friendship or otherwise. If I get into an argument, my first thought is to panic a little bit. And that's just because the way I am. I was trained that way. I was never really taught it was okay to just take your time. No one ever gave me that. So it's hard for me to communicate too, but it's okay to have those hiccups. That's what I'm trying to tell everyone out there right now. It's okay to have bad moments or dark times because honestly, at the end of the day, it's a learning curve. You might be 50 years old and still learning a little bit about yourself every day, and that's okay. You might be 10 years old and still learning something. You're going to learn for years and years and years. Don't worry about the time, just worry about doing it. Take your time, get it done, and know that you're worth all the effort in the world. All the love, we'll see you later. Bye for now.